No.
Fuck,
How?
it's like arguing with a 4-year-old. Like I
No,
don't know why you can't
you
answer
literally
any
argue.
questions.
You say the same like lines with every single person. Like, oh, it's like a 4-year-old. You like
Why
preload
won't you
it.
just answer my
Can
question?
you stop? I
Why?
understand. No,
No.
the United States men of a duty to enroll in the military is not from Christian values.
What the
So
fuck does that have to do with what I just asked you?
Duh. Forgot to turn the power on. That would be a good idea. And damn it, that intro is freaking awesome. And I wanted to say so right out of the gate, but I screwed up. Sorry about that. Don't worry. I'm not losing it. I'm in tune today, and I'm ready to go. Actually, I'm fired up as hell because, geez, Louise, I've been having to listen to some incredibly ridiculous, stupid shit, which unfortunately I don't really have the ability to get to today because I didn't have time to clip it. But as I wrote in the description, today is probably going to be something that's going to have to be continued tomorrow anyway, because a lot of the stuff I'm going to be touching on today is stuff that's going to have to be expanded on because it's only half the story. Um, we've got a lot to talk about, guys. Oh boy, and I'm kind of bracing myself because this is going to be probably one of the more contentious, probably the most contentious episode I've had to do. But to be frank, I'm pissed off. I'm really pissed off, and I'm getting more pissed off every time I listen to some hack online that is really. Uh, we'll get to it. We'll get to it. I'm not going to go off the rails yet. Because first we have to talk about something I think we can all agree on for the most part, unless you really are kind of a secret, like a double agent Democrat working for maybe you're Thomas Massey, uh, who suddenly is appears to have more in common and want to work more with uh, Ro Khanna than anyone else in the party. Uh, I was slightly proud of the fact that one of the last things it looks like that Marjorie Taylor Greene did before she's apparently leaving the House is sponsored a bill that passed the House at least so far, which was the Do No Harm Act, which will end the butchers that mutilate children for their um, transgender delusions of being another uh, being another sex and being in the wrong body and then doing that at age like say who knows like 13 or 14 for heaven's sake my god it's barbaric and it's evil and it's a fantastic thing that that passed the House. I really hope it can pass the Senate. I hope there's enough people with some actual um, common sense and some balls and will actually step up and say, I don't care what the party leaders are telling me to do. I'm going to do the right thing about this. But we'll see. We'll see. But it was interesting that after all the appearances on The View and appearances on MSNBC, excuse me, MS Now, I'll adopt Greg Foreman, aka Black Conservative Perspectives, name of BS Now because that's all you get from them is BS, and you get it now. No matter when you turn on the channel, you get it now. So if you want BS, you can turn on BS Now. And anyway, if you want to see her there or see her degrade herself again on CNN, you can see that too. But I don't know. They probably were told to avoid subjects like this one because they want to make it all about Trump, and that's really, uh, well, I can't even say that's entirely. But this new angle of attack that started today, I'm only going to be able to touch on because, like I said, this is something that's going to have to come up probably in the next episode. I can't believe what's happened today, especially after um, after the tantrum that was raised, and now I can't believe. Well, I can believe it to a degree, but at what point do you just like learn that you've made a complete ass out of yourself and then bury your head in the sand? Does that ever come up for people on the left? I don't think so. I really don't. But um, I mean, they should because they've been telling us for this whole and this was brought up today, and I thought it was a perfect description of exactly what's going on with that. This is the second term Russiagate Russia collusion hoax. This is the Trump second term Russia collusion hoax um, impeachment uh, story that they're going with, and it's this one's even worse because as much as uh, Hillary Clinton was responsible for a bunch of unlawful, dirty shit. Um, it wasn't like people that were in her party were directly responsible for some secret backroom deal with Russia, as far as I know. I mean, there was the whole Ukraine thing with Biden and Burisma, but that wasn't exactly the same as the. I mean, that was kind of more relevant in the whole um, quid pro quo call thing. But um, what's really disturbing in this one is, I mean, I basically knew this from the get go because I've said this for a long time. I don't know why no one is more informed on the. I mean, I'm just a regular civilian. I'm an American citizen and just a regular guy who watches way too much stuff on social media. But I could have said like a long time ago, and no one would have believed me on Capitol Hill. But I mean, anybody that's got their ear open and is interested to hear, I could have told you what's in the Epstein files. Uh, Probably a lot of shit on Prince Andrew, and probably a lot of shit on a handful of left wing activists or donors, and a handful of politicians, and most of those dropped ties after his first conviction. A few didn't. I don't know if the stuff about Clinton that's just come out, who, by the way, is probably implicated more than anybody else in what's been released. I don't know if that was, which I'd like to see. I haven't actually gone through um, all of the all the documentation myself, but judging from the photos, it looks like it's probably later than. But then again, actually, I take that back. It looks like it may have been pre his first, you know, um, pre his first conviction. Uh, and as I've said before, the only one who's really dumb enough to actually still meet up openly with him was Prince Andrew, and he's, as I've discovered, at least he's been excommunicated by the royal family. But as far as Americans, most people weren't stupid enough to um, keep in contact with him. But as far as Trump goes, you have a photo with him with people who are in a fashion show or a beauty pageant, who, of course, by the way, are all over the age of 18 and are legal adults, and everyone loses their minds. And they see a picture of Bill Clinton in a hot tub with women whose faces are blurred out because they are likely underage, uh, and suddenly we need to know the context of that. And I hear that word and I'm just like, I'm so tired of that word coming from leftists that are on some sort of ridiculous fake news show. Whenever it's a defensive posture and they use the word, we don't know the context. Go to hell. I'm sorry, but you can kiss my ass with that because there's not one single situation on earth that you care about the context for except for when it involves a Democrat doing something wrong and there's evidence of it. Same reason why Joe Biden was innocent of anything to do with foreign influence peddling, where we know he made, you know, a shit ton of money. Uh, and we don't know the context for where what happened with this and what happened with that. And there's no evidence that there's any wrongdoing except for all the check stubs that came back and were filtered through about 12 different shell companies before they arrived in the bank accounts of Jim Biden, his brother, and then his wife, and then directly to the big guy himself. We don't know. There's no evidence. There's just no evidence, says Dan Goldman, who, as I heard the other day, is likely to, well, potentially uh, going to be losing his primary, which, I mean, I can say, I'm probably going to very much dislike whoever would replace him, but to be honest, I don't care. Just get rid of that guy. He is such a shit stain. I don't know what. I can't stand his paper thin arguments, his absolutely ridiculously thin skin, his oh so convenient way to trim around the facts of the situation to just not go quite far enough to mention the whole story, but just mention the incriminating parts that sound bad, and then get corrected by somebody on the other side, and then him sit there with his smug, arrogant nose in the air like he's still right. He's such a prick. But so I honestly, whoever's running against him, I don't care if it's somebody exactly like Zoran Mamdani, whatever. Go ahead. You guys already have no problem electing people who are. I mean, when it's controversial for people to be bringing their case to the floor of the United States Senate that we need to reject Sharia law in the United States, I think we've kind of lost the plot. Anyway, none of this has to do with directly with today's stuff, except for the the stuff we're talking about with the Epstein stuff a little bit. We'll get to how that is involved, um, but first off, let me just really quickly go over this. I don't want to talk about me much because honestly, um, it's been a rough couple of weeks, and the only silver lining essentially is that told you guys I was going to meet with a neurologist and I was going to actually have an EEG. I did. Um, and I'm waiting for the results of that back, but hopefully I get some answers because as the last stream went, absolutely, as you might guess, not according to plan, especially if you were here. My apologies. It was, luckily, it was only about maybe 2.5 hours or so of time that I was uh, off air. And when I woke up, I was once again on the floor. And so I must have slid off my chair again at some point. And I know I fell asleep. And I know when I fell asleep too. I was doing this, and I remember this very distinctly because this was before I'd gone completely under. And I know the signs now. I know when I need to stop, and I just was refusing to do so. It was really stupid, but it was like, well, okay, just get out the important stuff that you need to get out. Just get to the important stuff, and mention that you're feeling like you need to get some rest, but you just want to get the important stuff out. It'd be a quick episode. We can do it. No, 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 no. Once you get to that point of nodding off and not being able to finish a sentence, it's time to ixnay the stream, like right there. And I was stupid and I forgot that. And so that's what ended up happening. So I'm really sorry. And unfortunately, that was actually, there's a lot to talk about on that episode. And now it's not, it's still important to talk about, but it's gotten eclipsed by what's been going on in the very recent future. So, or in the very recent history. So, we'll have to touch on that as soon as we can. It will be relevant, actually, in the upcoming, probably more like next episode, though, because I'm only going to be able to kind of highlight a little bit of this point. But when we look at what happened at Turning Point America Fest this year, oh boy, it's sad to see that. But there's people who are at fault here and people who aren't, and we'll highlight that because, quite frankly, I'm getting sick to death of it. I'm really getting sick to death of uh, the people that are telling us all what the conservative movement is and what it's supposed to be and who is good and who is bad and who is right and who is wrong. I think I can make that decision on my own. Thank you very much. I don't need somebody to explain it to me. If I can understand to some extent, like when it comes to, in particular, foreign policy, and when it comes to false information about foreign policy and false information about foreign countries, um, especially when there's, uh, I mean, you got plenty of people in the Democrat Party who are certainly concerned about the Venezuelan drug traffickers who are getting blown up in the Gulf of America. That the infamous Devil's Tap, as it's been known, which we'll get to. Um, my God, how dare you? And pull Greta Thunberg. How dare you? How dare you? Yeah, like they're really clutching their pearls on this one. They're like, how dare you not follow the rules of engagement in war? It's like, no, we didn't declare war, and getting all angry about this, and once again, because I love these tropes that have come up. Like when it comes to freedom of speech, people have taken that to mean freedom of expression. That's not necessarily true. There's different laws for expression than there are for speech. Speech and expression are different things. But oh no, who's calling me? I'm just gonna turn it off. But oh, I did get a new phone. It's kind of important, but I'll get to that a little later. Anyway, um, so yeah, the boats that are like, it's incredible how it takes. Sometimes it takes a reminder. Sometimes they don't even believe it after that. But we can find we can find every single person who was in the Capitol on January 6th, 2021. We can find every single person that was there, even grandmothers who got shoved in the door for 30 seconds and then were pulled back out and walked away. We can find them. We can find everybody wandering through the building that day, not necessarily doing anything violent, not necessarily attacking police officers. And they were causing an insurrection and go wild and crazy over that. But apparently our intelligence agency can't, figure out when giant barrels of cocaine and fentanyl are being loaded onto boats in Venezuela and transported through the ocean to the United States. They've a little trouble with that. They can find Joe Schmo who was at the Capitol on this specific day, no problem. But the trafficking of vast amounts of narcotic, nah, there's no way to know. It's just a fisherman in a boat with 4 high-speed engines that's barreling through the the freaking ocean faster than a fucking uh, freaking fighter jet. Oh my lord, these people are deranged. But anyway, this is just my rant for the day, and that was my explanation of the last episode. I hope everybody that was here. I'm sorry about that. Really really feel bad about that. I'm really sorry. I should have known better, and I just, I'll just say this last thing. I'm really trying I'm really trying my best. I really am to do the show, and I think it's most likely going to be a thing where, um, as soon as I get some sort of diagnosis and and get some kind of treatment or medication, whatever is going to be the prescription or the recommendation or whatever from the last tests that I've had run, and get some information about that. Uh, it's probably going to be an unstable schedule, which I can't stand. Believe me, it really gets under my skin every day, and I really I mean, it drives me crazy, but um, I've found myself too many times just in a situation where I just know I can't do it. I can't do it, and I'm not going to try to do it, make a fool of myself again and again, because I know what's going to happen. So, um, even the fact that I start the show now at the time I do is just it shouldn't be that way. It should be. I've been really. I finally had a good discussion about this the other day. Where do the show early again. You need to do it. Back during the middle of the day like you used to. Yeah, absolutely. I do. I do need to do that. But so hopefully it starts heading in that direction. I'm going to be doing the best I can, but in all likelihood, and like I said, to be realistic about it, just for 100% honesty, I highly doubt that that's going to be the case until I actually get some kind of uh, relief based on the last few tests I had run. And one thing's for sure, I mean, every doctor I've talked to so far about the condition, they are all kind of confused at first. At least they don't know exactly what's going on. So hopefully there's some. There's been a few theories tossed around, but nothing concrete. So yeah, as far as what to do about it, they don't even want to take a guess at it. They're just kind of um, trying to give me some, whatever I can take that will help with the immediate symptoms and hopefully the underlying problem. Then we can figure out uh, we can figure that out and then treat it accordingly. So, but until then, I wish so bad that I could do the show every day like I used to, but it's just probably, it's not because of the show, but it's just this is like kind of like the story of everything that I've tried to do before. As soon as I find something that I'm really strongly passionate about and really want to get into, that's when the issues start to kick in. That's when something unexpected comes up. That's when there's some sort of hindrance that was never there before, and it just pops up out of nowhere. And here it is. And like I've said before, I think the best proof of that is when the show first started. For the first 2 months, I had a 6 day a week schedule, and I didn't miss one show except for I think I missed a grand total of 3 in 2 months. And by missed, I mean I was late. So yeah, it was like everything was going pretty smoothly. Um, and then after those 2 months, something kicked in, and it has to be related. So, but anyway, that's the story of that. So on with the episode. So um, we can officially say Democrats are losing their minds, and there's good reason for it. It's pretty obvious at this point that they are very, very concerned that they're not going to be able to continue the trend of. Now, there's a side note about this, but let me just kind of make the point. They're very concerned about the midterm elections. The trend usually is that the party that's not in power in the White House, that just won, um, they lose control of the House, sometimes the Senate, but almost always the House in the midterm elections. Normally, for a president who has just been elected to their first term, that sucks, but that's not, you know, earth shattering because of two reasons. Number one, they have 6 more years to be the president, and they have more than enough time to turn the ship around. And number two, they're not Donald Trump, who earns this completely ridiculously overblown response from Democrats who hate his guts so much that they can't stand any second that he's in office and literally spend, as I've said before, every minute of every hearing questioning witnesses in hearings that are about nothing at all related to Donald Trump to just rail on Trump. But it's gone further than that this time. It's even worse because now they're not just content with railing on railing on President Trump and maybe on his vice president. Oh, no, 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 no. They hate the whole damn cabinet. They literally are. I've heard at least 4 members of the cabinet be discussed in terms of Democrats who are talking about bringing articles of impeachment down for them. 4 members other than Trump. We've got Pete Hegseth. He's at the top of the list. We've got Secretary Noem. She's right below it. We've got Robert F. Kennedy, who they of course hate, and we've got who's the last one? Oh yeah, Marco Rubio. Um, they've they've talked about bringing articles of impeachment for all of them. Literally every single one. Somebody in Congress on the Democrat side is trying to bring articles of impeachment down. Now, what's interesting is that normally these things are done only with the blessing of the party leadership. Like, for example, if you're going to bring an article of impeachment to the floor of the House, um, you have to run it by Hakeem Jeffries and probably Nancy Pelosi still, um, which, by the way, oh, praise God, she will be gone after this. I think she's finally retiring, which that couldn't be a better thing. But yeah, you don't do that especially as a freshman senator of any kind. You don't do anything without the blessing of the leadership. And I think that a lot of these members are doing it anyway. And I think the reason they're doing it is because they're poised for uh, their big Marxist takeover of the Democrat Party under the leadership of the the caliber of the caliber of politician such as AOC or Jasmine Crockett or Ilhan Omar or Sheeta Tlaib. Um, the kind of people that couldn't give a damn about the country, care more about countries that they came from, like Somalia and um, well, wherever the hell. I mean, not Ilhan Omar. Well, she's from Somalia, but like AOC talking about her grandmother in what was it, El Salvador that had have a roof, or was it Venezuela? I don't remember. She's such an idiot. But she has a leaky roof. She can't afford to pay for. Well, first of all, you're a extremely popular and well known congresswoman from New York City. I think you might want to sling a few bucks her way to replace that roof. Nah, she could handle it herself. Oh, then why talk about? Well, it's because she shouldn't have to do that. Okay, well, how about we help her out? And yeah, I don't know if you guys heard this story, but a bunch of conservatives tried to start a GoFundMe for replacing AOC's grandmother's roof, and she forced them to take it down because they didn't want conservative money. It's the most ridiculous. Jeez. It's like, why wouldn't you? Wouldn't you want the opposition to be the ones paying it? No, because that shows the benevolence in the other side. We can't do that. We can't humanize Republicans. Are you crazy? What kind of ship do you think we're running here? Jeez Louise. Anyway, but yeah, it's unbelievable when you hear these people because they're I remember Rashida Tlaib was being asked about conflict with Palestine or something. It was something along those lines. It was a reporter from Fox, and she's like, "No, I don't talk to Fox. on Talk Box, they spread lies and false information. It's like, well, we're offering you a chance to speak. No, no, I'm not talking. No, no, no. And she went on to. I think she went on to kind of. What was it? It was like she went out onto this roof, and she, like, I don't know, she was playing some music or something. Um, it was really weird. Oh man, my oh, hold on. Let me see. I spent forever setting this thing up. Now I got to figure out why it's not working. Uh oh, I think I know why I didn't set it to the right device. Does that work?
Halcyon people.
Yeah, it
This
does.
is all for you.
Kind of lost its punch, but I'm sure. I was thinking about that. I've said this before, but I gotta say it again because it's just too funny. I can imagine some Palestinian people that are hearing this message and like, oh, thank goodness, we're gonna be all right now. Rashida Tlaib banged on a pot in Washington D.C. and she said it was for us, so I guess everything's good now. No worries. Peace between us and the Jews and Israel. Everything's fine. Because, Rashida Tlaib took a metal pot and banged it on like, are these people, are they sane? That's why when Trump calls walls retarded, I'm like, why is everybody getting mad? He seems pretty retarded to me. When you go out on stage, you're like, and you're going like this, and you have no freaking wrist bones. Like, oh my God. The dude is a freaking goof. I swear. He's such a clown. And he gets all mad because Donald Trump calls him retarded. Well, maybe don't act like a retard, and then people won't call you retarded. Like when you
Halcyon
go,
people. This is all for you.
you do that little stupid thing that AOC tried to do to play it off as a joke when people were saying, hey, ho, ho, AOC has got to go, hey, hey, ho, ho. And she's trying to go, like she's feeling the beats, like she's really feeling it. Yeah. It's freaking stupid. Anyway, so back to the real world. So yeah, this impeachment thing, it's just gone so far out of control, and I have a compilation video I can bring up because I had to get these all together. There may have been some even added after this, but this is what we were at when I was able to clip this because my lord, this is just. And then bear in mind, of course, there's still Trump. He's not discussed in this montage, um, but never forget Trump because he's obviously guilty of something. So, um, uh, yeah, there's going to be you know impeachment. I mean, because when it comes to the Epstein stuff, like I said, the biggest the biggest fu to everybody is that he's not in anything incriminating. He never was. I'll tell you a little story in just a second, but we'll play this because I think this was pretty indicative of the situation we're in right now, and it's something I rarely do, and I don't want to brag about it, but I will brag a little bit because I was kind of impressed by the result. But anyway, let's see. Oh, I'm in the wrong folder. Are we there now? Yep. Here we go. I did end up. Excuse me. I did, and finally organizing most of my folders to the point that pretty much everything I needed to be ready for the show. It's always in the same folder now, but one problem that is becoming very apparent if any of you do video editing or clip editing or compilation clips of any kind in video software, you'll know what I'm talking about. When you move files that are in use and you need to go back and edit that file again, and you move the video clip originally somewhere else, it's like, oh boy. And there's so many of those that are missing now in so much of my stuff. That was why, by the way, in the intro video, the new intro video, I was so glad I could get that. I've had that file, that editable file in my stash for a long time now. I've wanted to use it for I don't even know how long. I could not get the FA logo into the TV at all for so long. It just was not working. And just lo and behold, finally, I guess I've finally gotten the hang of it. But I can't remember what I called this. That's the only problem. It's not here. I think it's just um, um here we go. Here it is. And what do you know? It's almost the same name as the episode. It throws the word "dem" at the beginning of it, but it's called Dem Impeachment Frenzy. So, anyway, let's go ahead and pull this up. Oh. So this is 3 straight minutes of Democrats with their impeachment proposals for, like I said, almost everybody in the whole cabinet. Oh, it does start with Donald Trump and none other than our favorite cane waving lunatic Al Green and his second attempt. He tried this before, even though the party didn't want him to do it, and he did it anyway. So nobody went along with it. I think he already did again, and he already failed again. But they're looking at like more people voted for. Well, of course, more people voted for it this time. They're more lunatics, and they're more sane people that went lunatic in the time period. So of course there's going to be more. But hold on just a second. I think I'm popping a little bit, so I'm just going to turn down a smidgen, and that should do. Okay. So without further ado, let's go ahead and check out this ridiculous idiot shake his cane once again in front of a bunch of people as he talks about the evil Donald Trump and his dastardly deeds, which has got to be one of the stupidest things ever said on the floor of the Senate or the House. Excuse me. This guy's not a senator, of course. But anyway, let's watch the montage. Here we go. Yeah, of course not. But there is the smart thing to do, and then there's the stupid thing to do, and you're doing the stupid thing. So it doesn't have to be there, but that's still pretty stupid. Anyway. And by the way, once again, who the hell is this woman? I never even heard of this woman before, and so there's no way in hell that um leadership approved of these impeachment articles being written up and brought to the floor. There's no way. There's no way because they wouldn't allow freshman members of the House or anyone really that definitely not freshmen. even if they wanted to do the impeachment articles, they wouldn't allow a freshman member of the House to bring the impeachment articles either. That's the other thing. You got to know how the Democrats operate. It's not like the Republican Party that kind of has their inner spats, but usually come back together on the big issues. In the Democrat Party, it's hive mind. It's you got to follow the rules, or you're not going to get involved. Period. Oh, I think I forgot to turn the. I did. I'm sorry. We had to start this over again. I'm sorry about that. You got to listen. Now we got to not only look at Al Green, you got to listen to him.
I pledge to you,
but,
I will bring those articles of impeachment to the attention of the Congress of the United
There we
States
go,
of
there we
America before the Christmas break. I'd love to have a majority, but the Constitution
this is
does
why.
not have a scintilla of a word in it
Scintilla
indicating
of a word,
that you have to wait until you have a majority to impeach. It's just not there.
A House Democrat filed articles of impeachment against
Very
Health and
smart.
Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Representative Haley Stevens announced the move, arguing Kennedy has failed in his role. Stevens had previously vowed to file the articles in September.
RFK Jr. has got to go. Today, I introduced articles of impeachment to remove him from office. RFK Jr. has turned his back on science and public health and on the American people. Under his watch, families are less safe. Healthcare costs are skyrocketing, and life-saving research, including right here in Michigan, is being gutted.
Oops, there goes my phone. Oh well. So part of this life-saving treatment, by the way, I'll show you in a minute from another clip, which was from the House resolution to end the butchery of children. And you'll get to hear about how of course, trans people are less safe with this new policy in place. I don't understand that, because once again, show me some information about suicide data among kids that age, like, let's say 12 to 16. Let's say age 12 to 16, when you'd be going through puberty. It'd be the pretty important years for that type of growth to be going on in the vast majority of cases. Show me any evidence that there was some sort of spike in suicides that came about pre 2015, when the trans lobby started going nuts and decided, fuck do no harm. We need to learn how to do these surgeries. Somebody's got to be the guinea pig. Let's just cut the children up. And sorry to be so graphic, but I mean, this is what they're doing, all in the name of science. And and how it's so dangerous to not let delusional people butcher themselves and do irreparable harm to their bodies when they are not even a legal adult yet. It's disgusting. But anyway, I don't know for sure if that's what she's talking about. She's probably talking about who knows what the hell she's talking about. Anyway,
RFK Jr. is the biggest self-created threat to our health and safety. I cannot and I will not stand by while one man dismantles decades of medical progress. Enough is enough, and that is why I'm pushing to impeach RFK Jr., to hold him accountable, and to protect the health, safety, and future of every Michigander. Because our health, our science, and our future are worth fighting for.
The move comes just days after Stevens fell.
And here's one of the stars of the show, one of our favorite congressmen, Shri Tanadar. Mr. That is an increase. This guy's got to be one of the most one of the biggest embarrassments to the Democrats, but they have to prop him up. They have to pretend he's legit. There's nothing wrong with this guy, which honestly, I think, like, seriously, there is something wrong with this guy. I'm not even joking about it, even though it is still kind of funny. But I mean, there's just, I mean, in everything he does, he's so weird and he's so goofy. You cannot take this guy seriously. There's a video I'll let you guys see in just a minute of their attacks on Kristi Noem, which they really tried to go after her in the last hearing because, you know, God forbid you try and send violent gangbangers and criminals, out of the country, which there's some very, very scary statistics I'll let you guys in on as we go over that. But for the time being, there was an interesting moment with this clown asking if she would resign if she wasn't fired, and she came back with a really good answer that was pretty good rip on Mr. Tanadar here, and he just sat there like the whole time. His expression never changed while he was asking the question, and when she was ripping on him for the answer, he just sat there smiling. He didn't care. That's why maybe he's a Republican plant. I don't know. Maybe it was maybe he's a double op. Jeez. All right, let's listen to this guy. Got some important to
Fellow
say.
Democrat, Representative Sri Thanadar, filed articles of impeachment against War Secretary Pete Hegseth. Thanadar pointed to reports that Hegseth issued orders to kill everybody on board a small vessel that was allegedly involved in drug trafficking.
Yeah, kill everybody.
Hello, this is Congressman Sri Thanadar. Today, I introduced articles to impeach Secretary Pete Hegseth for murder and conspiracy to murder and reckless and unlawful mishandling of classified information. Since day one, Secretary Hegseth has disgraced that once proud office that he holds, from issuing orders to kill everybody on board a small boat with no evidence of any wrongdoing, to launching a...
No evidence of any wrongdoing. This is what I mean. This guy is, he's got to be, one thing I can say for sure, whatever it is, I guarantee you, they probably sit in Democratic meetings, especially with the leadership, and like, God, what are we gonna do about Tanadar? He's out there doing that stupid shit again. Oh my God, I swear, I can see them just getting furious about this guy all the time for this stupid attempts he's making. Right, with Al Green, he's just an old kook who's just angry all the time. This guy, you can't even tell. He looks happy while he's doing this. Something's not right here. This is just so bizarre. And yeah, okay, where is he from again? I don't know. I'd love to hear someone in his district actually, give us the reasons why. Well, I thought this guy was going to be a great representative, but I mean, is it on the spectrum of really bad to moderately bad to not such a big deal? I don't even know where to place this guy. It's like he's trying to do really bad stuff, but he's so fucking terrible at it that it's almost like it's not that big a deal because he's so ineffective and he sounds so stupid whenever he tries to do this stuff. It's like you got Ro Khanna who always tries to appear so professional, and he's been trying so hard to push these ideas lately, but he's just been falling on his face because you ask him basic questions and he doesn't have a good answer. That's a little different. This guy just comes out right out the gate and he just sounds like a fucking loon. Anyway, well, let's hear from... Can't believe...
follow-up strike to finish off survivors who barely clinging onto their life. His actions are not just reprehensible, but illegal as well. Former military attorneys have come out and asserted that his actions have risen to the level of war crimes. He also put the lives of our own troops in danger by leaking classified war plans in an unauthorized signal group chat, which included a random journalist with no role anywhere in the administration.
They stayed in there, you know, didn't let everybody know, hey, I don't think I'm supposed to be in this group. I'm not a member of the cabinet. Just stayed in there and collected information, like any honest journalist would, you know. But I specifically find it funny because you know, he's talking about all this danger and how he's guilty of murder, and you bring up one point about Barack Obama's drone strikes, which actually killed, you know, American citizens, like actual American citizens in other countries that were not even adults, like literally killed American children in drone strikes. No issue there. But kill some drug traffickers for peddling, you know, literally cocaine and fentanyl into the country, which especially fentanyl, because I mean the mortality rate on this. And one thing that I found that's interesting is I can't remember what it was I heard, but it was something that essentially led me to believe that a lot of these are meant as ways to kill certain people. Like, because if you don't know, if you're not a drug person, like I would assume you're probably not, maybe you've seen Pulp Fiction, so you probably know this. If you get heroin or an opiate and you have that either mixed in cocaine or mistake it for cocaine, and you snort a line of pure fentanyl or some sort of really powerful opiate, you're going into overdose mode very quickly, and it can very easily kill someone. And somebody said that there was a lot of cases of I can't remember what it was. It was like there was like it wasn't like mixed already, but it was like fentanyl that was still in powder form as opposed to being in capsule form, which it would be if it was attempting to be sold on the market as fentanyl tablets, which in general any kind of opiate other than heroin is going to be which I don't even it's still a opioid. It still is a derivative of opium, but it's not obviously heroin is not a medical product, so it's not something that has a pill form. But fentanyl, on the other hand, has been released by the FDA or whatever agency would check it, which was, by the way, really irresponsible. But because I mean, everyone went berserk over OxyContin, which, to be fair, was a little much when you're putting out oxycodone at 80 milligrams per tablet. That's quite a dose of oxycodone. But as far as fentanyl, the reason, as people have discussed before, it's so deadly is because it's extremely potent, like very, very pure opiate, and it doesn't so measurements have to be extremely precise to be able to get a safe version of fentanyl out into the market, and that's one of the biggest dangers from the drug traffic that's coming from Central and South America with opiates, is that and particularly fentanyl, is when they make these illicit tablets, what kinds of what kinds of equipment are they using to measure the dose, and that's there's one other part that's important too, which is that as far as as far as the people who are killed, in the vast majority of cases, the people that die are the most innocent people who aren't even users. They either get a tablet that they think is something else and take that, and um, are not people who use any kind of opiate, have never had an opiate, and they have no tolerance for opiates, so they're taking like the most powerful opiate you can imagine, which possibly might be by its own nature and process of being manufactured is um, already a lethal dose, just based on the fact that it's so poorly um, poorly measured out uh, when it was produced, that the the dosage is way too high and you die unless you were like a extremely like long term and very heavy drug user. But in the cases of fentanyl, for the most part, when it comes to people who already are on uh, some type of uh, some type of drug like heroin or some of the most potent types of opiates, they all want to switch and go over to fentanyl now. And that's the thing that is, people should actually be aware of that, because, I mean, I've been hearing lately from different people who know, like, being in California, there's a lot of illicit drugs, and knowing people who are friends with or involved themselves in some form of illicit activity. Um, everybody everybody that used to be uh, into heroin or into really strong opiates, they all just want fentanyl now. They all are only interested in getting fentanyl, and uh, another reason that I probably should have mentioned this part with the cocaine part, because one of the preferred methods of ingesting fentanyl is actually to crush up the tablet even and snort it like you would cocaine. Um, there are certain types of opiates that you can do that with, and certain types you can't. But in fact, when it comes to the OxyContin scare, they actually, um, to the credit of for one of the very few things that the FDA did that was a good response, was that because so many people were ingesting by snorting, they wanted to make sure that that was something that people current weren't going to be able to do. So instead of releasing typical tablets that are like the powdery kind inside, these were ones that were more like a not gel, like liquid gel, but like waxy kind of interior. And you couldn't crush them up and snort them. So a lot of people were a lot of druggies were really pissed off when they did that switch, because they couldn't snort them anymore. But when it comes to illicit drugs, I mean, they're always going to make them and release them in the fashion that you can do them like that, or you can just s- uh, swallow them like you would any other pill. Or I mean, you can even crush them up and mix them and slam them like a with a syringe like you would heroin. And there's a bunch of different ways people ingest. But the bottom line is, like, if you were to release um, a batch of cocaine and you crushed up some fentanyl tablets and mixed them in with that cocaine, that person would be dead. That person would be dead, especially if they're doing cocaine and their primary drug is cocaine. They don't really do opiates. That would be a death sentence. So it's a method for assassination, which in large part, I'm sure, is more intended for rival gangs and maybe for people that have kind of crossed the cartels in some way or another. But it's always something to be aware of, because the drug dealers and people in the country who are actually on the distribution level. They might not know for sure what's going on. They might not know exactly what's supposed to go to this person or that person, and they don't know that this batch is tainted with laced fentanyl or with laced cocaine, whatever. And so that's where a lot of danger comes in. And you know, I don't care if they're already drug addicts. They don't deserve to die. I mean, they deserve help, but they don't deserve to die. So, and I know I'm going off on a big tangent on this, but a lot of people don't really know that much about, and rightly so. I mean, it makes sense. I'm very knowledgeable because I have a family who has had a lot of issues with very severe pain, and like my grandmother, for example, has had. I don't even know how many surgeries she's had, but in particular, a back surgery that went really badly, and a metal rod inserted into her spine that really actually did more harm than good. And now her knees, she's lost pretty much all the cartilage in her knees, so she's got forget the name of that condition, but that's extremely painful as well. So I've got a lot of people in the family that need to take medication, but geez, they're so they're really conscious about what they're taking. And when have I mean, I've stepped in before, and I've told you guys before. I've been honest about it. I had a opiate issue, especially when I was tattooing. That was I came down on myself a lot harder than I probably should have. I wasn't near a level where I should have been quite so harsh. But then again, maybe it's a good thing to be extra harsh. It motivates you to do what you need to do, and I did. But the point is that being involved in that, plus the fact that my family has uh, typically have had a number of people that have had serious pain issues, and I've looked up this stuff a lot, and I've been trying to figure out what would be the most effective for a condition that they're in, and so on and so forth. So because their insurance doesn't provide for every type of pain medication that's out there, and I think going through the list, some of it makes no sense, like why this is available but not this, and it's just weird. But anyway, when it comes to fentanyl, that's why a lot of the issues come up that do when it comes to mortality, and uh, especially when it comes to people that are what's the word? People that are like this jackass who's talking about how there's no proof of anything was going on this boat. It's like, as far as I'm concerned, like you're coming in with barrels, and once again, like, have you talked to the intelligence agencies? Do you know what they know? Have you even asked them any questions? Do you care? Because from what I've heard from people who have represented the intelligence agencies and have discussed these operations, yes, they've been following these people for months. They know exactly who's on the boat. They know the exact cargo in the exact amount, most cases. And they are basically waiting for this chance to take them out, because this is where President Trump said, if you're trying to bring drugs into this country, we will blow you up out of the water. And I don't see anything wrong with doing that to protect the citizens of America, period. And this, for a fact that, if it wasn't Pete Hegseth doing this, and if it was somebody who was a Democrat who they probably wouldn't be doing this, but if they were, there'd be no issue whatsoever. They wouldn't see any issue with this. So, yeah, it's absolutely just disgusting to hear that kind of stuff. As funny as it is with Sri Tanadar, but there was one other one other clip that was similar in what I was talking about, because it had to do with border crossings and the problem being mostly solved under this administration. And, oh yeah, I think I remember. Yeah, this was an interesting one because this goes back to Dan Goldman and some of his arguments for why both Secretary Kristi Noem and Secretary of War Pete Hegseth are they're just it's an outrage what they're doing on border protection, and it's amazing. Yeah, here we go. There's might be in this one. It might be part of. Oh wait, no, this is yeah, this is the one that. This isn't the one I was talking about with Dan Goldman, but this is the one that kind of shows because they didn't bring up the impeachment articles for Kristi Noem in that one, but it's discussed, and that was why I was gonna. Let me see if I can find. Oh yeah, and then that's another really important point too. So. Hmm. Sorry, I want to make sure I have all these ready because there's a few that I need to kind of put back to back to make it all make sense. So um, let me make sure I find all of them. Um, let me see, what is this one? I forgot what this is. Let's check this real quick. Yeah, okay. This one is this one's a good introduction because it shows you that just kind of sets the tone for the hearing. I should have put these all together, I think, in one package to get it all together, but it was kind of hard to know exactly what because these came from different sources and kind of putting them together in a way that okay, well, you have them all, at least you can play them all. But let's see. Yeah, and I found the one I was looking for. Okay. Let me just make sure I know it's on this one too. Okay. Yep, this is the one with Dan Goldman. Okay. All right, I found them all. So we'll go ahead and start with the intro to the hearing, which, by the way, once again, it's only Democrats that behave this way, and it's only Democrat supporters that behave this way. You never see Republicans and their supporters do this. They'll clap sometimes, and they'll be reminded not to clap because it interrupts the speed at which they can conduct the hearing. But sometimes I kind of feel bad because like, man, damn it, these people deserve some kind of way to show their appreciation to someone who's finally been listening to them, you know. But anyway, so let's check out the warm welcome that Secretary Noem was receiving when she came to the House to answer questions from these absolute scumbags and see how that goes because it's pretty disgusting actually. But here we go. Let's hold on. Yeah, this is it. Okay. Oh wait. No, it's not this one. It's Damn. It's not that one. I just saw it. I can't remember where it was. Um, I think this might be it. No, this isn't it either. How many do I have? Oh, this might be it. Yep, this is it. This is it. Okay. All right, here we go. Okay, so we can start with this one. And like I said, this sets the tone for just the way the rest of the hearing goes. And I know where the rest of them are now, so there won't be any problems. Oh, whoops. Here we go. So, here we go. This is what they do with Secretary Noem when she's called to Capitol Hill.
With me, I'd like to introduce them to you.
The interruptions of congressional business is a violation of law, is a criminal offense under federal law.
Oh, please
Audience
show the
members
book
are
of this
advised to take their
cocksucker.
seats and maintain order. The chairman may now ask Capitol Police to remove and arrest the persons creating a disturbance.
And there's it.
Stop terrorizing our community. Get out of our streets. Stop terrorizing your community.
So yeah, real show of respect from Democrats and their supporters for, one of the people that helped to make sure the nation was secure from the open borders. That we have some numbers actually to listen to, as a matter of fact, because people have been wondering for a long time, with that open border that had been open for as long as it had, and especially after the fall of Afghanistan and what happened recently with that piece of shit that came in under Operation Allies Welcome, who I guess means we're talking about a very loose definition of allies. Then yeah, maybe that's an ally to some people, but I would say to me not so much, because allies I wouldn't think arrive in the country and then go drive across the entire United States and end up, murdering attempting to murder two National Guardsmen, and miraculously one living, which, by the way, that was an amazing case to hear, that what was tragic as hell, that the female National Guardsman was murdered. The male National Guardsman, who had been in critical condition for over a week, managed to finally start to see his recovery turn around, and he's since been able to start his recovery process. It's going to be rough, and he's probably going to, he's always going to have some lasting damage done, but I mean, hell, that's one hell of a hero. And there's one more heroic figure we'll discuss later, but actually two more when it comes. They're both Australian, and it involves the Bondi Beach shooting that happened from the two Islamic extremists that decided, as father and son, it would be a great, weekend activity to go and murder Jewish people in Australia, of course. But we'll get to that when we get to that. For now, let's go over that question about the numbers of what we believe now, after we've had some time to finally process this stuff. Like, how many suspected or known terrorists are actually in the country that we know about now at this point, after the border has been sealed and we have gotten control again? they're still here. They still are in the country, and it wouldn't matter, if it was one of them that we were trying to deport. Um, I'm sure you'd have the Antifa fags and the leftist lunatics out there all yelling and screaming and blocking cop cars and throwing bricks and Molotov cocktails and God knows what else, maybe even shooting them again for deporting literal fucking terrorists this time. But let's see these numbers. How many are we talking about here? It's freaking jaw dropping, actually. So here, this was presented at the same hearing.
NCTC has been crunching the numbers and going through the sheer volume of known and suspected terrorists that are in the country that came in under the Biden administration. So far, NCTC has identified around 18,000 known and suspected terrorists that the Biden administration let come into our country. These
Let that sink in for just a second. 18 hijackers caused 9/11. Multiply that by 10,000. 18,000 known or suspected terrorists in the country now that we know of. That's just what we know of. That have been let into the country. Took this administration less than a year to figure that out. And let's just go over this because I have to do it. I have to do it because it's classic, it's powerful, some of the most important and historically amazing and badass moments the Republicans had on the House of Representatives during the last administration. And right now, isn't it ever glorious? I just have to play this to remind everybody because there were people that were speaking out against it. And two in particular, oh boy, they really brought the heat to a Secretary of Defense or a Secretary of Homeland Security that actually deserved it. And that would be, of course, Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, whose bullshit excuses allowed this to happen. So, let's take a quick look at that, and then we'll kick on with the show. But just so we don't forget about this, let's check it out.
The only plan that you offer, the plan you just offered, is to process aliens faster and encourage more to come. We know that to be true. I know it's true. You know it's true. Cartels know it's true, and people around the world know it's true, and that's why people are coming.
That is false.
It's not false.
Yes, it is.
The entirety of your plan says that. The Secure Fence Act of 2006 says what? That the Secretary of Homeland Security shall take all actions the Secretary determines necessary to achieve and maintain operational control over the entire international land and maritime borders. Will you testify under oath right now? Do we have operational control, yes or no?
Yes, we do. And
we have operational control of the borders.
Yes, we do. And Congressman, we are working to...
Listen what operational control defined.
In
this section, the term operational control means the prevention of all unlawful entries into the United States, including entries by terrorists, other unlawful aliens, instruments of terrorism, narcotics, and other contraband. Do you stand behind your testimony that we have operational control in light of this definition?
We do. And Congressman, I think the Secretary of Homeland Security would have said the same thing in 2020 and in 2019.
The Secretary would have at least had a basis for saying that we have some sort of control of the border. But the fact is, we currently have people flowing across the border, including dangerous narcotics and dangerous members of terrorists, which your own agency sent a letter to my office after 8 months. We sent a letter saying there are 42 people on the terrorist watch list that are in the United States. But you just said to Mr. Jordan, you don't even know where the hell they are. How about the little girl here?
Real quick, you notice that number? At that point, 42 people they knew or suspected to be terrorists were in the country. And he, of course, has no idea where they went. No idea, because they just got in, we gave them a flight. We let them go wherever they wanted to go, because they're fellow human beings. They deserve compassion. They deserve a chance at the American dream, just like everyone. No, they don't. Sorry, they don't. They don't. And if they actually really want to be here, there's a process for that, and the asylum process, which I think I forgot to include this clip, but there is a necessary requirement in the asylum statute that states that while you're awaiting asylum, you have to be either detained, or that was what was so brilliant about the Safe Third Countries agreement, was that meant you didn't have to take up space in a detainment facility in the United States. You could go to a country that was not the country you were fleeing, safe third country. You could stay there and wait for your asylum claim to be adjudicated. And why do you suspect that when the Afrikaners were allowed in the U.S. and was flipping out because they're white, so God forbid President Trump allow people who actually are in danger of having horrific consequences come down on them if they were to stay in their country that they actually live in. Why do you think when they actually came into the country and were approved, they were already there, and President Trump met with them personally, and they were standing, waving American flags and smiling and shaking the hand of the president? Because they went through the process the right goddamn way. I'm sorry. But it's just so aggravating that they compare these things like, well, he'll let the white people in. Well, sorry that the white people in this situation just happen to follow the fucking law for what they're supposed to do to be considered to be considered asylum seekers under the law. They went through the process. They weren't allowed to just come into the country and wander free while we adjudicated the case. We only allowed them into the country after they've been approved and their asylum cases were heard and they were granted asylum in the United States. They didn't just stroll in and go wherever they wanted and wait 10 years, 15 years for you to adjudicate their case. And in the meantime, who knows what they're doing? We don't even know where they are. We know nothing about it. And they never will forget that. I heard something today, once again, about how they let in the Afrikaners there was no reason to believe. Really, there's no reason to believe. I guarantee these people haven't even heard one bit of information about what happens to white farmers in South Africa. I've heard more than I'd like to remember about some of the it's not even murder. How much inhuman torture happens, not just to the farm owners, to their children, their 10, 12-year-old fucking children. But yeah, they don't deserve asylum. Nah, they don't deserve it. Some piece of shit who beats his wife and still human traffics and brings in a bunch of drugs and got exactly what he deserved, and yet has piece of shit congressman who will go fly down and pat him on the back and get him a nice margarita and tell him everything's gonna be all right. We'll get you back in, no problem. A judge has ordered it. It's sick. It's absolutely sick that they're so absolutely concerned about the Maryland man, Mr. Abrego Garcia, but the Afrikaners, oh, fuck them. They're not really being persecuted. They're white. Of course not. It's disgusting. And just so you hear this, just so you make sure this sinks in, I don't want this to be passed up. Listen to this.
What you just said to Mr. Jordan, you don't even know where the hell they are. How about the little girl here with a brand on her arm? A little girl with a brand on her arm because of your policies. A little girl here in the desert found by ranchers trying to save their life. And how about the lost voices for people dying from fentanyl? the tens of thousands of Americans dying from fentanyl. Faces of Americans across this country dying because of fentanyl pouring into our country.
Time of the gentleman is expired.
You know full well.
Time of the gentleman is expired, Ms.
Encouraging people to come here, harming Texas and harming this country. You know it.
Identified over 11 laws that you violate.
Before we get to Clay Higgins, I swear, I even if I disagree with Chip Roy from time to time on certain things, I will forever salute the man for that. That was exactly what people needed to see, and that was not in any way an overreaction. That was not in any way over the top or unwarranted. That was exactly what people should see. He's responsible, and the Biden administration is also responsible, in part at least, for every single one of those people on those photos that he was literally throwing at Secretary Mayorkas, for the fact that these American citizens are dead and their families are grieving, and the administration couldn't care less to even inform or have a discussion with the family. You notice how Donald Trump meets with American families when there's a tragedy and tries to talk to them personally, wants to meet with them personally, reaches out. Yeah, Biden administration, they couldn't care less. It was about welcoming the illegals. We got to make sure the illegals are comfortable. And so the people that go out on a limb and constantly run defense for this type of shit, it's inexcusable. It really is. There's nothing you can say that makes this permissible. I don't care if you think you're being compassionate. There's nothing compassionate about this. I'll get to my involvement in this in just a second, because it's like I said, it might be a little thing, but for me it was kind of rewarding in some ways, and I have to at least make an address of it because there's something I hadn't addressed yet, and I'll do that in just a second. But next, this was probably the best moment I've ever seen from Clay Higgins as well in the House. So, which I know people make fun of Clay Higgins. He's from Louisiana. He's a no-nonsense former police officer who very famously called out the Gremlins street gang, and told him that gun or no gun make no difference to me. So let's hear. But the guy's an old school lawman, so you got to give him a little bit of leeway on that. So anyway, here's Clay Higgins on his what he had to say to Secretary Mayorkas. By the way, this was after a few hearings where he had literally basically pleaded with the guy to just accept some responsibility about the situation. And he, of course, he always refused to. So this is where he was like, I'm done with this.
Some of the most egregious, the Secure Fence Act, 2006, concerning operational control. Immigration Nationalization Act 236, Section C, 8, U.S. Code 1226, concerning detention. INA 241, Section A, 2, U.S. Code 8, 1231, concerning detention. Immigration and Nationalization Act, Section D, 5, Alpha, 8 U.S. Code 1182, concerning parole. We've given you ample opportunity to seek some sort of honorable exit from your executive position, sir. We take no pleasure in witnessing you dismantle yourself as a fellow American before the whole country. Your legacy: millions of illegals enter our country, millions under your watch, loss of operational control of our border, aligning DHS policy as an asset to Mexican cartel drug and human trafficking, the disintegration of our national sovereignty, destruction of countless thousands of Texas family lives, overwhelming crime waves sweeping across our country, over 1 million criminal runners you call gotaways flooding into America, many carrying backpacks loaded with deadly fentanyl and meth, or herding teenage girls into prostitution, sex slave networks across America. 225,000 Americans dead from Mexican cartel drug overdose since you took office 2 years ago. You and your inaugurated president, but mostly you, sir, because you have your whole mind about you. And you have a highly decorated background in border operations, so you're supposed to be the expert. You, sir, are the Secretary of Homeland Security who has failed in your sworn oath to protect our nation from invasion. You had an obligation to execute the president's policies or advise the president if his policies were bringing injury to America. Ultimately, your oath requires you to secure our nation's sovereign border with Mexico and do anything necessary to stop the Mexican cartels from trafficking endless wave upon human wave of illegals into America, along with miserable death, unspeakable grief, graveyards filled from sea to shining sea with the bodies of American sons and daughters dead from fentanyl. You've brought generational trauma upon our country.
Here's where it gets really
I
good.
believe history will witness your era of service as a transitional time in our country.
Indeed.
Well, what was America like before Secretary Mayorkas, and what was America like after him? It's stunning that you could sit there and smugly grin as if you've not miserably failed your country.
I've never seen Clay get this angry before.
We could give you money to hire 1,000 new border agents. Nobody wants to work for you. They're coming forth. We can't keep up with the whistleblowers that are coming to testify against your command. We could give you money to deploy all sorts of new technology. I have evidence in my file that you've given command to not deploy technology that you currently have because it interfered with the cartel's business model. We're done with your lies to America. It's shameful what you brought upon our country.
Absolutely. That's why I say, you know, you can say what you want about Clay Higgins, but man, like when the rubber meets the road, he's not going to tolerate any bullshit. And I will say this about the guy just real quick because I don't want to keep going off track here, but he gave an interview with Tucker Carlson early on after he was only a couple months into the TCN network, TCN show that was after leaving Fox. And Clay Higgins was brought on not long after it started, after just a couple months, to discuss January 6th and the FBI potential presence that was there. And it's very interesting because he didn't want to give a specific number because it was still being investigated. They didn't have any kind of assuredness that the number that they had investigated was accurate, like 100%. But he was willing to throw out a sort of a range that he would feel comfortable stating. And I swear, it's amazing. The number he gave was over 200. And if you remember, first it was there's none there. Then it was, well, there were some agents there. Then it was there were 24 agents there. Then suddenly, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we hear that between the number of confidential human sources and FBI agents on the ground on January 6th, it was 200 216, 215, something like that. So, yeah, he was exactly right. He was 100% right. And everybody kind of laughed and, scoffed at Clay Higgins for, doing his thing. And yet he was absolutely 100% correct about almost the exact number that was there on January 6th. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. So the guy knows what he's talking about, regardless of whether people think he's a little weird or not, which is true. I'm sure you do the line of work he was in for as long as he did, and you probably will be kind of weird too. But it's true. That's exactly how much. So, let me try and speed this along a little bit. So, that's how the Republicans handle hearing like that. They're serious about it. They aren't focused on ridiculous nonsense and trying to smear the acting secretary for no reason. And they're not even talking about impeachment yet. Clay Higgins mentioned that he should resign, and several senators and congressmen all said that he should resign. But it was after several hearings. Wasn't after just a couple. It was after. In fact, this was after they took majority. So this was after like 2 years of this shit. So there was a decent amount of time that passed before they started calling for him to step down, not for impeachment, for him to step down. They said that they would, and they did actually. Was it Mayorkas? Yeah, it was Mayorkas that they impeached in the House, and Chuck Schumer decided to first he was going to table, and then he was just voted to. Did they vote even, or did they just dismiss the whole thing altogether? I can't remember exactly what it was, but they didn't even want to hear the evidence. They didn't want to hear. They didn't want to go through the impeachment procedure. They weren't even willing to hear the evidence in the case. They just wanted to dismiss it and whatever. And it's obvious why. Same reason they opened the border. The same reason they looked the other way while they were trafficking people in that had no vetting, no known history, no way to check any kind of database or information center of any kind that would have any kind of record on people from their home countries, because most of these countries can't keep records. They're lucky if they have a government in place that has a building that's even designated for the leadership of the country. But let's check out the highlights from this hearing, because this is where it really is just disgusting. It's just absolutely sick. Because once again, this comes down to what is happening to people who are here illegally. And by the way, there are more people who have decided to self-deport than have been deported by ICE, which I find to be both an amazingly good thing and flying in the face of everything the Democrats have been trying to push. Like, they're trying to come here to escape a brutal regime, and they're just seeking a better life. No, I don't think that's it. When they're willing to self-deport back to their home country, if you just give them a little bit of an incentive, and you present the alternative of this was all done and was done improperly, not under law, and so therefore no one is here lawfully. We would like for you to volunteer to leave if you are willing to do so, and if you are, we will give you the cash to and the plane ticket. We'll give you the ticket to go back to your home country. We will give you, I think, couple $1,000 to settle back into your home and get all of your affairs organized and get resituated. And because you took the responsible route and self-deported, we won't bar you from ever being able to enter again. You just have to do it the right way. If we have to hunt you down and arrest you and forcefully deport you from the country, you are going to be blacklisted and you will never be allowed entry into the United States legally for the rest of your life. And so there is a hell of an incentive there, of course, but even so, it's both an amazingly effective policy and it's one that kind of shows what was really going on here. They were dangling this idea of American citizenship in front of people's face, like, this is your chance to come in. We'll provide all the free services you need, and which is why, once again, the whole idea about illegal immigrants getting Social Security and getting unemployment and getting welfare and getting all the social safety net functions that are supposed to be for American citizens are all going to illegals, and it was all based on just one administration that was dead set on bringing in as many as possible. That they were hoping were going to be loyal to Democrats after they do all these favors for them, to vote Democrat in every election as soon as we make it possible to have them vote. And we'll deny it every step of the way, and it's pathetic. But anyway, so when you have a secretary that's closed the border, that understands the threat, that presents some numbers, that presents some statistics, including financial issues that this whole thing causes, this is what they do to this Homeland Security Secretary. They don't respect the office. They don't respect the job. They respect when their person is sitting in that chair. But anyway, so this is going back to the Democrats playing their games. I hope the volume was on that. I just noticed that. I think it was. I think I saw that. Anyway, here we go. It's this one. Yeah, this is it. It's 3 minutes long, but it's worth it. So.
Secretary, you and the gentleman from NCTC reference the unfortunate accident that occurred with the National Guardsman being killed.
You think that was an unfortunate accident?
Yeah, I just let that one sink in too. He refers to someone brought here from Afghanistan who was likely posing to be someone. Well, actually, I think it was determined that he was someone who provided information, but most certainly doesn't share in American values, and most certainly shouldn't have been. Now, maybe he doesn't deserve to be in Afghanistan after helping the United States. That's true, but this is where things come in, where the cultural issues could have been discovered, and it would have been a much better idea to help him get situated into a country that would be more more appropriate, considering his theology and his values and his customs and his way of life, to have him settled into a country that was a little bit more appropriate than the United States, because instead he went on to attempt to murder 2 National Guardsmen, successfully murdered one, and it's all because there's no doubt that after leaving Afghanistan and coming to the United States, where things are very different, the pressure had to have been just boiling over for years until he finally snapped and drove all across country just to murder a couple of people that were doing their job as members of the National Guard. And that was referred to as an unfortunate accident by Benny Thompson, the guy that sat and chaired the January 6th bullshit committee. So let's listen to the rest of this.
I mean,
It was a terrorist attack.
Wait. Look, I'll get it straight. Then you can
He shot our National Guardsman in the head.
Look, Mr. Chairman, will you direct the witness to allow me to ask my question?
He's not doing
it. Was an unfortunate situation.
Madam Secretary, your incompetence and your inability to truthfully carry out your duties of Secretary of Homeland Security, if you're not fired, will you resign?
Oh,
Sir, I will consider your asking me to resign as an endorsement of my work. Thank you very much.
The lack of respect and regard for the rule of law by this administration, and in particular by this secretary, is at a level that we have never seen and violates all of the constitutional norms and all of the principles of legal fairness in this country. And you're seeing that manifest itself in threats to law enforcement and bubbling over because people are frustrated. And they are channeling that frustration because the administration is not.
So the attack on the National Guardsmen was Trump's fault and Secretary Noem's fault because people were just pissed off. What are they supposed to do? Just not kill National Guardsmen? Fuck off. Seriously.
Listening.
American people absolutely trust this department to keep them safe. And we are showing that every day by the support we get across the country, the amount of people that we're recruiting to all of our different agencies.
Thank you, Secretary Noem. Do you agree that using DHS resources to target members of Congress is an abuse of power?
Excuse me, would you say that
You
again?
would have heard me if you stopped talking.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead and speak, miss. I will go and attack ICE officers at an ICE facility because I'm mad that they won't let me in right this second. Yeah, that's the dumb bitch that freaking decided to swing on ICE agents. She's gonna sit there like she has the high ground in any situation in this country. Jeez.
Listen to my questions. Do you agree that using DHS resources to target members of Congress is an abuse of power?
We are not doing that. We are out there enforcing the law, doing our work, and we are allowing oversight.
Of course, we're not going to get any answers. With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield
If you're talking
back.
about targeting someone who
If your
attacked...
department deports
here we go.
anyone
Here
with
is
an
the man's up.
ongoing asylum application, you are violating the law. Is that correct?
It was greatly violated when they allowed
I'm asking you.
people to come
I'm
in
asking
and
you.
granted asylum applications.
Why are you filibustering? Why can't you answer the question? It's a simple question.
Your president
If your department
and your secretary
deports
did not
anyone
follow the law
with an ongoing asylum application, you are violating the law. Isn't that correct?
The asylum program was broken under the last.
Mr. Chairman, I will reclaim my time. She's not answering the question. But the obvious answer is that yes.
No.
If you follow a lawful pathway, asylum is a lawful pathway. If you have an open asylum case, you are here lawfully.
No, you're not. As I just was discussing, this is why I was bringing that up. I forgot this was why I brought it up. I knew I was supposed to bring it up, but this is why. No, Dan Goldman, no, you're not. You know why? Because until your asylum case is adjudicated lawful and you are approved for an asylum, then no, you are supposed to be either detained or remain in a safe third country. If we're still going by, I don't even know if that policy went back into effect or not. Regardless, you're not supposed to be in the country without being detained and being allowed to roam free while your asylum case is being adjudicated. And for good goddamn reason. Jeez, I'm sorry. I did it again. This guy, man, he tries to hide behind the law, and he's going to bring up due process, of course. And once again, due process, two different things depending on who you're talking about. Yes, people who are here illegally get due process. What is that due process? Immigration hearing. Immigration hearing. If you are given a final notice of removal, that was the due process. It's over. It's done. You've had your due process. Get the fuck out. Jeez. Yet they don't care. They don't care. They would rather just let the people in. And it's unbelievable. You notice in this case, he does this from time to time anyway, but he's really been doing this lately where, because he wants to keep his job and he knows he's got to impress the radicals on his side. He's really got to ramp up the rhetoric and make sure that he paints everybody on the other side as evil and racist and whatever else he figures is going to make him look good. And none of it makes him look good because he's a fucking idiot. But go ahead, fucking idiot. Keep going. It shows what a knowledgeable man you are about the law, but okay.
But the problem that we are seeing around the country is that you are not following the law. Don't tell us to change the law. If you don't like the asylum system, you change the asylum law.
You're not following asylum law. once again, as I said, and it continued on and on in the same vein. It's pathetic. It's absolutely pathetic. But once again, it doesn't matter what the law is. It doesn't matter what the law says. They've made up their mind. They know what they want, and this is what they want. They want a bunch of illegals in here, and if there's American citizens that are casualties, well, that's the price they're willing to pay, and they've shown that since day one when they opened the borders. They couldn't care less how many Americans end up casualties of this, because it's about the donor. It's about the voters. It's about the donors too, but it's about the voters. And you see that also with the redistricting, which we'll get to actually in this. This is going to be a longer episode than I had anticipated. We're at 2 hours. I'm going to try to keep it under 3, but yeah, the whole thing is just outrageous, considering the fact that once again, we're talking about people that have no legal right to be here under our laws. The Democrats love to throw these things out, and this is the biggest problem with the way that things are being interpreted, which, don't get me wrong, I'm not happy with Congress right now. They are not acting with the kind of urgency that the situation really demands them take, because if forget about President Trump for a second. People don't always recognize, or they don't know the way that the law works. They don't know the way that the free branch, they haven't been taught, because it's been once again gutted by the Democrats, who insist on, until recently, until the big beautiful bill passed, no school choice, no teachers that have tenure can ever be fired for any reason whatsoever, unless they are caught in the act of molesting a child, and maybe even then they'll stick around. It's just there's no moral compass at all, and it's just amazing to try and hear a moral soapbox lecture from these people who haven't shown one time any ounce of interest or concern or care whatsoever for the American people, yet will stand and champion American people as who they're fighting for. When it's like, really, then why is it that every time you open your mouth, you seem to be speaking in defense of illegals? And you keep on repeating about how illegals are afforded due process. Illegals, it doesn't matter if you're a resident or not, if you're legally here or not, you are guaranteed due process under law. Yeah, what does due process mean? Because due process is very different depending on the situation. Due process for murder and due process for shoplifting are two totally different things. Due process for crossing the border is a different thing. And crossing the border illegally is a different thing. And if you're in the country illegally, and if you're going to force us to go through the asylum process anyway, despite the fact that they came in unlawfully, fine, we'll adjudicate the case. But if they have a final notice of removal, then that's their due process. The problem is that they need more due process. They keep repeating the phrase, they have their day in court. They don't have a day in court. They have a judge that determines their suitability for asylum. And if they are found to not be suitable, then they are issued a notice of removal. And if that's not carried out swiftly, they are issued a final notice of removal because they've exhausted their appeals process. And there's no arguing anymore. Your claim was refused. Go back home, have a nice day. Because one factor that's obviously taken into consideration, once again, is the claim that they would be persecuted based on religion or heritage or any other characteristic that is either immutable or religious belief. It's like, no, you can't discriminate against people if you're a government and supposed to be in charge of defending the people of your country. Likewise, we're not obligated to get involved if you're here because the only thing you're running from is the fact that you can't get a job in your home country. I'm sorry that's the position you're in, but that's not our fight. That's not our responsibility. And we have American citizens who actually would be a priority if government had control of anything. That they would be the priority for. I don't mean control. Just if they were able to enforce the laws that are as they are written and as they are supposed to be enforced. Same thing with birthright citizenship. The way they twisted and broke and rebuilt and super glued that thing back together into this weird mess of nothing that was never intended to be used the way it's used. It's just it's sick. Anyway, so that's our it's our lovely state of affairs when it comes to the administration, and you know, this all stems from the main reason they're doing this, which is obviously, as you've heard probably several times at this point, the radical base of the Democratic Party, which might not be the biggest portion of the party, might not be the most important part in terms of election prospects, but they're the loudest and they are by far the most intimidating. And in a lot of ways, they're always incredibly, and here's the key point, they're always incredibly politically activated. So when it comes to local elections or national elections, it doesn't matter. They're going to rally their entire group of activists to go out there and make sure they vote D across the board. It doesn't matter who the best candidate is. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what state or what the issues are that state is facing. It just matters that you're showing allegiance to the party. And that has become so sick for this party. It's absolutely out of control that they are so hive-minded, as I said before, that they have no problem bending, breaking laws, doing things that are outside the scope of their role as members of the House or of the Senate, and they are still of the sound mind that well, government should be there to help this with this and this and that. No, not really. That's kind of the problem. Anyway, so was there anything else that was in this, or was that the last part? Because the other subject we had to get to, it's another doozy, but can't remember if there was anything related directly to the impeachment setups and all. So I will say this real quick. When I say that in the upcoming elections for the midterms this year, or not quite this year yet, we're getting close, but 2026 midterm elections, if you want the House of Representatives to be flipped and go into the hands of Democrats, you can expect this type of thing day after day after day, except it will be witnesses called by Democrats to spew all kinds of BS ideas about why this person is not suitable for this position, this person is not suitable. They really have been gunning for Pete Hegseth. They really hate Pete Hegseth for, I guess, for many reasons. And I mean, he's a very no nonsense, very old school believing, has a very old school belief in the military and what it's supposed to be and what it's supposed to stand for. And honestly, when you look at that, it's so hilarious because they try to argue how terrible it is that that was part of what it was I was going to be talking about. It was, of course, this crusade by Mark Kelly to go after Pete Hegseth and the Department of War for all the evils that they're responsible for when it comes to what when was it? I don't remember. Anyway, that's what you'll be hearing every day from the House. They'll be hearing after hearing after hearing, all intended for impeachments. All intended for impeachments of this guy, that guy, the president, this person in this position. And just think back to the first term. What did we hear over and over again? Nonstop from Democrats. Russia, 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 Russia. That's where Russia, Russia, Russia comes from. Because they wouldn't stop talking about Russia collusion, Russia collusion, Russia collusion. What happened? It was bullshit. It was absolute bullshit. And they still, some of them still cling to that stupid story. They still actually believe Donald Trump, the rich, germophobic president of the United States, was in Moscow getting peed on by hookers. They have some sort of strange insistence that that actually happened. It's sick. It's sadistic. It's absolutely sadistic. I think that there is a sense of, I don't know, masochism from Democrats. They absolutely despise their enemies to the point of wanting. I mean, we heard from that one guy who got actually elected. That wasn't a great sign, but once again, it's from a psychotic leftist state, so I guess it makes some sense. But it, the people that actually somehow have bought into it. I guess once again, you have the mainstream media who presents these stories and doesn't tell you everything about them, and presents things like, well, obviously that's because they're trying to do well. No, none of it's obvious. You should ask people questions, but you never want to have those people on to ask them the questions because you think it's wrong to platform them, or you're giving them too much power. They're already in the administration. They have quite a bit of power already, and they can talk to the American people directly whenever they want. So why don't you shut the fuck up and actually just have this guy on to talk about it if you actually care? But you don't, because you're trying to make straw man representations that people think of when they go to the voting booth, and that's what it's all about. And I'm telling you, I've never seen a situation that made me more nervous than this year's midterm elections in terms of a political event. I talked about the last election. That one was scary too, but it was a little less scary because I honestly could not see America voting for Kamala Harris. Even with Trump in mind, I couldn't see them voting for Kamala Harris, with that being the alternative. And it really sealed the deal with Kennedy dropping out and joining. And look at him now. He's an amazingly influential head of the Department of what is it? Health and Human Services? Health and Human Services. Who, by the way, the position was previously held by another disciple of Mayorkas, Javier Becerra, who I recently heard some kind of really despicable charges about that were, or at least accusations to some degree about, and they might be false, they might be true. I don't know for sure, but I'm going to have to look into that for the next episode because it was quite a doozy. It kind of took me off guard, but then again, I remembered what he was like, and the kind of reports from his staff that he was essentially very no nonsense about, hey, no, rush this case through. Nope, get it through. If you can't do it, I'll find someone else who will get these cases through faster. No interest in vetting people more thoroughly, no interest in actually looking up their actual record, just about how fast they could process people. Just as Chip Roy said, just making sure that you get as many people, just wave them in. However, there's a situation now. Before today, this was making me feel a lot more comfortable, but then today some things came up that were a little bit more concerning. So I have to go over that when I can in just a second, and probably moving on to the next episode. But here's where things stood just a couple days ago, and I thought this was really revealing because one thing I've been hearing, and it just doesn't make any sense to me, is this idea that I hear from a lot of conservative commentators about how the approval for the GOP is just looking terrible, and it's looking like it's going to it's looking like it's definitely going to be the case that the House is going to flip to, and it's like, man, wow, that's first of all, I don't know where you're hearing that from. It sounds like a liberal rag to me, though, because to be honest, I don't know how you could be so certain of that with the political environment. I can't say for sure at all what's going to happen. But I can say one thing for sure, that if people knew the actual truth about what the administration was doing, which I think there's a great chance that when they start feeling it, when the big, beautiful bill's policies start going into effect, meaning in 2026, that may be a bit more of a, which is why I have no doubt in my mind that Trump and his administration is trying to very strategically make sure that Americans are going to be feeling the benefits of the policies he's presented by the time we get to the midterms next year. You can say what you want about the man now and think that they're going to do terrible and think that Republicans will do terrible right now, fine. But when it really counts is when we're getting into election season, and especially when we're getting down to the months or weeks sort of time frame, like how much is actually going to be like how much is it going to be a factor that is going to be taken into consideration honestly and without hearing a bunch of ridiculous talking points that have no merit and no basis in reality. What is it going to look like? And I'm thinking that that's going to make a big difference. But even so, even without that, I think this is a very revealing clip, and I think it's kind of funny to see too, because on CNN, I haven't been able to talk about the guy yet, but Harry Enton, the guy who runs the the big electric board of information, like Joe Hemmer does on Fox, when he's discussing polls and data that they've collected from different sources, I've noticed no matter who he's standing across from on that set, they aren't getting anywhere near as animated or excited as he does, and I don't know, I'm sure he's a Democrat, but I don't know how devoted he is to the party or if he's more of an independent kind of thinking guy. But I can tell you this, he doesn't ever give that away in the way he delivers the messages. He does so in a way that actually, oh, damn it. Anyway, so the point is, there's one more clip that I remembered I was going to play for this segment, which was the Harry Enton on CNN clip for some of these numbers going into the midterms, even though we're still about almost a full year away from the midterm elections. But this is why I still think that, I don't know what data is out there, and I don't know how much of it is accurate, but I know more of it is not accurate than accurate, because the numbers I see just don't conform with reality. And once again, hearing Ben Shapiro constantly shitting on the chances of the GOP to maintain the House, like, what if it's not a pipe dream? So, oh man. Anyway, jeez, what file was it? Sorry, I'm trying to make sure that it should have the screenshot should be there. Um, yeah, here we go. I thought I had a screenshot. So, all right. Yeah, it's off. All right. So, and I can just imagine that the Democrats, when they watch this, they've got to be fuming. Like they've got to be steaming and with anger when they see a poll like this. So, and especially when it's coming from CNN of all places. So, but that's why Harry Ensign, man, the guy is so animated. He's always so, you can't help but get energized too when you watch Harry Ensign. It's bizarre, but anyway, let's check this out. Lower than the Dead Sea. He's laughing about. Hmm. Oh. Oh ho ho ho. So, first of all, before I get to the other thing, I love the. It's actually lower. It's actually lower than the guy. The guy emotes so you can't help but love it. You can't help but love the. I mean, he's really into his job. He's really into his job, and it's just it's great. I hope they don't get rid of this guy because he's the best. Nobody reads numbers like this guy. Nobody reads numbers so entertainingly. But I mean, look at that, and that comes as a direct result from once again the Mamdani and the Somali population, the Michigan, right? Yeah. Um, Tim Walz, his stupid shit. Um, that is a direct result of the idea that yeah, they're gonna fight. They're gonna fight Trump. They're gonna fight. They're gonna really make sure that we get this. And then, you know, Chuck Schumer doesn't even vote in favor of reopening the government, but he just doesn't use his hive mind powers to block the rest of the Democrats in the Senate from voting to reopen the government. And of course, all the fire still comes down on him anyway. But the fact that that was that or the Epstein files or any the way they treat ICE, the apps that they've released, the way they've protected illegal immigrants, the way that they have acted as if Americans are the ones that are more dangerous and the immigrants are all here and they're all such hardworking people and they all contribute to society so much more and they commit less crimes than Americans. It's all bullshit. It's all bullshit. And I could go one by one. I'm not going to get into it now. I will get into it, I'm sure, at some point soon because it is important that people understand where these talking points come from. But for the time being, you could just look at the results. Just look at the results. I mean, and he said it himself. This is the lowest they have ever polled Democrats in the history of polling, really, it seems like. So let's keep going. Or at least this century, it seems like. Or century, yeah. millennia, century, both actually. There's the part about Dan Goldman. There he goes again. This is the important part. So once again, that's why I can't understand why so many conservative outlets are. Maybe it could be that is in an effort to make sure, because one of the biggest issues with midterm elections, especially for conservatives, is they just don't show up. They just don't show up to vote. But I think in this case, considering the fact that Democrats have consistently and in such massive ways just put themselves out there and unashamedly admitted, yeah, we're for this, yeah, we're for that, yeah, this says this all I mean, they won't say this is unconstitutional or this is illegal or this is not the way that this this institution was meant to function, but the result is this and that, and they've been able to ride that as a excuse before, as a reason why it's important to remember that there's a precedent here that after a president is elected and in their first term, which that's the sad part of the situation, is that it's not his first term, but since he was serving non-consecutive terms as president, that means he was just elected, and that's usually when the majority party, if it's the same as the president, it doesn't switch, or it switches. But once again, talking about conventional wisdom in a situation that's anything but conventional, considering what we're talking about, and I just don't understand why, other than, like I said, if it's to motivate conservatives to make sure that they get out and vote during the midterms, I get that. Which, once again, there's nothing like a bad turnout to destroy the. I think that was kind of why, when in the last administration, when there's supposed to be the red wave in the middle of the Biden administration, the red wave didn't come. Why? I think there was an overconfidence there that kind of led a lot of conservatives to think, I don't even need to show up. We've got this. It's no problem. And as things turned out, there was a very slim shift in the House that put them in the majority, but not by much. And the Senate stayed. As a matter of fact, gained a seat. So, and that was incredibly, incredibly depressing for a lot of people who had been expecting, including me, that there was going to be some some actual accountability for people in elected office. And another problem is, once again, when you go back to discuss things in the legislative branch, this is going on about three presidential elections now, or three presidential terms now, where when we get to midterms, things are very strange and turned on their head and turned. I don't know what I was going to say. But yeah, there's enough that believe that, based on how terrible it's going, that they're going to be able to just skate right through this, and they underestimate the way that, look, Democrats don't have the best ground game. But why? Well, because they own all of the media. All of the mainstream media belongs to the Democrats, which is why it's insane to hear the takes of left-wing media when they're talking about this. They always are like, how dare you? How dare you suggest that we are not fair and objective? Us over at BS Now. There's just, dude, you couldn't even keep your contract with the company that funded you because of how radically left you are. I think there may be cause for concern there. That's a pretty bad spot. Um, Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm not done with the. We got one more thing to go over, which, like I said, this is it's a little disheartening, but at the same time, I think it's also oh, look at this! I didn't even notice this in the chat. Greta Clinton, Africa. Very nice to hear from you. It's an awesome argument. White supremacist. Yeah. Man, interesting. Your argument is very compelling, although I would say you're slightly off the mark, because you obviously don't watch my show, and you obviously haven't heard a thing I've ever had to say, except for in this episode. And as a matter of fact, I don't think I've said anything at all whatsoever that has anything to do with white supremacy or white people in general. As a matter of fact, I don't know what I've said that had anything to do with race whatsoever, other than the Afrikaner thing, which sorry, the demographics there are the demographics there. And it's not like, I mean, you have a guy on stage saying, kill the boar, kill the farmer. I think that's kind of a pretty good indication, dude, that, yeah, there is racism going on there, but it's not on black people. And in South Africa, I mean, I don't think there's really much of a comparison you can make to the social structure of the country compared to American structure. Sorry, I missed your messages. I really would have liked to respond to them. I don't know why they weren't appearing in my street. Oh, there they are. Hey, look, here we are. Oh, it was covered up by the window, so I couldn't see the stupid shit you were saying to me. Interesting. Well, sorry about that. My apologies. I would have loved to respond to your accusations, but yeah. No, you're wrong. So sorry. Don't know what to tell you other than you're wrong. But it is kind of funny that that you think that's effective, because what? What's the angle? What's the position that you draw your conclusions from? Where? Because it's kind of interesting. Because I support Trump. Is that it? Or because I support our border being closed and welcoming people from any country as long as they are able to assimilate into the country correctly, the way they're supposed to by law. Oh, look at that, we're losing people. Okay, well, that's funny, but whatever. Greta Clinton, Africa. Oh, maybe, I guess that's it. Africa is in the name, so if you're from South Africa, I guess that explains it. I've never had, I knew I was opening up a can of worms on this one. I didn't know it was going to be so bad that for the very first time ever, I was going to get a raving maniac in my comments, but cool with me, that's fine. Um, so, yeah, thank you, sir, but best of luck. I guess you're gone now because I didn't respond fast enough to your accusations. Sorry I didn't see them. I wish I had. That would have been a good show. But maybe next time. Anyway, so moving on. The last thing. Yeah, that's right. I was going to touch on Dan Bongino. And I don't have enough clips to really do it, but we can talk about some of the stuff that came up because, look, probably somebody that I would say was one of the biggest inspirations to me for actually doing the show was Dan Bongino. He's one of the few people that had a podcast and a regular show that was on every day that I actually really enjoyed. And when he left, and then after Charlie was killed, there's been a real hole that has been left in, for me especially, because those two were two that I watched all the time, and especially, I would say Dan probably was the one that I never missed a show for. So when he went to go work as assistant FBI director, it was a little bittersweet because I thought he would be a great person for the job, but I was going to be missing my show. So a little selfish, but not without its reason. But anyway, I was initially like blown away and surprised as hell when I first heard he was leaving the FBI. But then I started thinking about it, and I was like, actually, it's not. Actually, it's not because I haven't heard what he's had to say yet, so I'm still waiting to hear about that. But the reason started to become apparent to me, and that's right. That's right. I remember now. So you notice this came right after the pipe bomber case was essentially solved, and or at least they have a suspect in custody finally for the case. Which, by the way, Mr. White supremacist accuser over here, I wonder what he thought when they announced that it was a white man that was the January 6th bomber when they were showing a photo on screen of the guy who was, in fact, black and looked like it looked like hadn't committed a crime. Never even considered doing anything criminal. To be honest, just by the photo, looked like a normal guy. It looked like just a normal guy and wouldn't be involved in anything criminal. Although, very strangely, doing something this absolutely insane. But here's the thing. There's something about this that doesn't sit right. And I know a lot of people are still angry and they want justice for the situation because of the prospect of laying pipe bombs in front of federal buildings with the intent to potentially kill anyone that's nearby. But here's the thing. There's one thing that's bothered me for a long time, and it's actually Dan that first mentioned this on his show, and they haven't addressed this at all. But they have made mention of something important, which is, I don't know why it was just glossed over. And maybe one thing I can say is that, and this is one of those things that's going to have to wait to the next episode because, like I was saying, the conspiracy theories from the fringe people on the right right now, especially, and not even all fringe people on the right. Some people that are pretty mainstream conservative, the way they're talking about things right now, and the sort of civil war brewing is turning off a lot of people that are more independent, more moderate, conservative, and for good reason. We don't need to be watching these internal bickering sessions back and forth, and it's not going to help the Congress to have somebody who is constantly slinging accusations and somebody else who's constantly making accusations back and unfounded bullshit that keeps going back and forth. That's not going to help anybody out at all. But I'm not trying to propose a conspiracy theory here, but there's just one thing, and I would like to have an answer to this question because this has to do with the pipe bomb case specifically and why it's been discussed, but why nobody has explained this. And it's even further compounded by some of the other facts that were presented, which I'll go over real quick. First of all, the pipe bombs that were laid, everybody acknowledges so far that I've seen talk about this, that there was a sort of a kitchen timer that has, one of the ones you manually turn to up to an hour, and then when it's done, it does the bell ringing. Those were attached to the bombs. Why exactly would you be using that as a timer for a bomb when you lay them in the middle of the night and they're supposed to go off the next day? And so that's question number one. And question number two, I had heard this mentioned sort of early on. I can't remember who it was, but there was an official who was with, I believe it was the FBI, and it was originally investigating this issue. And they had mentioned that these were made up bombs that were actually exactly identical in almost every respect to the training mock bombs that are used in military to train bomb defusal technicians on how to when going through drills and things like that. I'd never been in the military, so I don't know that to be a fact, but that was what he was saying there. But I do know, once again, that judging by the fact that we have a timer that makes no sense to put on there because it's not going to be relevant at all to when the bomb goes off. And secondly, when I've heard the shopping list that they've been cross-referencing of the supplies that he's purchased, I've heard of things like electrical wiring, like the what's that? It's not PVC pipe, it's metal piping. There's the caps for the pipes, and it's just basically components that aren't related to no chemicals, no black powder, no explosive device, no nothing like that. It's only been related to. You would think there'd be something from like farming equipment or some kind of chemical manufacturer or distributor of some kind. Nothing like that. It's only been the physical components for construction of the aesthetic components that would serve a purpose if it was a functional pipe bomb. And this goes all the way back to the actual event itself. But what exactly is the evidence that, because everyone keeps saying it was a real bomb. It was definitely real. They were both obviously real bombs. And I'm sitting there going like, then hold on. Why was it that, once again, Secret Service, when you look at the way they reacted to the knowledge about pipe bombs being in the area, when you look at the fact that they allowed literally a group of school children to walk about less than 10 feet away from this thing, and the amount of evidence that's there, there's no urgency. They get closer to it to take photos. And now one time, Kamala Harris is in the building. And not one time do you ever see any kind of sense of urgency. It's spotted by a guy walking who just happens to look over and see it and walk up to a Secret Service vehicle. That also, in and of itself, is a little unusual to see a civilian stroll up to the window of. Now, I think I heard something later about how that was a disguised FBI agent or something like that. I can't remember for sure, but there was some conflicting information about that particular aspect. But my point remains, I don't understand what the deal is with the whole scenario laid out. And once again, there's just so many questions. Like, if this was a functional bomb, none of this makes any sense. It doesn't make any sense on top of that this guy, okay, if he's it doesn't matter what party he supports, why exactly is he putting bombs at two different locations? Was he a bipartisan bomber or something? Like, I don't understand this at all. As soon as he gets in the building from FBI when he's arrested, before he's even really asked too many questions, he's already coming out like he's been scripted to say, yeah, I'm a MAGA guy, and I was pissed that Biden stole the election, so I wanted to get. Okay, well then, what's with the bomb at the RNC? Oh, well, I was mad at them that they didn't fight harder. Yeah. Okay. It's just too much is not adding up, and then when you hear from his family, his grandmother says that, oh no, he wasn't a conservative. No, all his life he's been a Democrat. The whole family is fully Democrats, and I think that was what they said. I don't think this was like the case of Charlie Kirk's shooter, where it was a family full of conservatives, and he was the furry degenerate that was in the relationship with the trans furry who also a degenerate that freaking. Decided that the world's too full of hate with Charlie Kirk, I'll murder him. Jeez. Anyway, but yeah, so this seems like such a totally different case, but more than that, there's just so many questions that I don't understand. I've heard no answer to, and yeah, I'd love to hear it, but then Dan leaving right after this. And then there's one final thing which I got to get out because this is this is a tough one to talk about, but there was something that Dan mentioned about so many FBI agents that have been going home and like literally unable to reconcile going home and leaving a job unfinished with kids that are constantly being abused by the cartels that brought them in, continue to be human trafficked. They still haven't found all of the kids that the administration before had just so nonchalantly decided, yeah, okay, go on, yeah, no problem. And then they lost track of where they were, and thank goodness Tom Homan has actually found thousands of these kids now, but they haven't found all of them, and it's got to take a toll. But here's the rub on that. See, like our friend here, Greta Clinton, Africa 22, who seems obsessed with race, and racism, and just loves throwing that accusation out. I had posted. This was like I said. kind of nerdy, a little goofy, but I don't usually get responses like this. I was watching a video a while back, and in fact, here's what I'll do. I'll pull this up so I can see exactly what it was that I posted. Here we go. Yeah, here we go. It was, so you guys know, I'm not the biggest fan of Kyle Kuklinski. In fact, I think he's one of the most scummy influencers that we have out there. Him and Sam Cedar, I think, take the prize for that label. But so I made a comment on this guy's video discussing what was the video on? Oh, it was Asmongold. Asmongold actually was responding to Kyle's anger that Asmongold was getting attention, and Asmongold was promoting conservatives, and it's like Asmongold's not even really. He's been responding to cultural and political topics lately, but he's not really a political streamer. I wouldn't really categorize him that way. I would categorize him as a modern cultural news commentator, I guess. I don't know exactly what to call it. He's still got his game interest. He still talks about stories within the gaming industry from time to time. But Kyle called him out by name, and so he responded. He watched the video and responded. Throughout the clip, I was listening to the typical Kyle Kuklinski bullshit, which, yes, I'm saying Kuklinski because he's a cuck. I just basically had said, this is why I wanted to bring this up, because, my typical replies or my typical comments on YouTube or wherever, they don't get much attention. This is the first time I've broken such a big number and gotten 820 likes on this. But so I was pretty proud of myself on that one. But the interesting part was that somebody that did not particularly like that too much left a comment, and it's because I mentioned that that the Democrats, and this is true, the Democrats have no interest in helping communities of minorities or people who are experiencing poverty. Like I would imagine our friend here was trying to insinuate, because of course the Republicans who try to encourage illegal immigration to slow down, particularly for the sake of Black Americans whose neighborhoods have been overrun with people who aren't even supposed to be here in the first place, and mooching off of city services, mooching off of things that are supposed to be designated for American citizens and not foreigners that are here illegally. So I mentioned a few things about my perspective on what I thought was ridiculous, which was that the Democrats were so focused on the Epstein files, despite them having control of the entirety of government for 2 years when the Biden administration first was sworn in, when they controlled the House, the Senate, and the White House. And they never even mentioned the subject one time. And yet they allowed more sex trafficking and more damage done to women, more rapes to occur, more underage child sex trafficking, any kind of crime you can think of across the border, and allowed it into the United States than Jeffrey Epstein ever could have hoped to achieve. And some numbnuts decided that he wanted to take umbrage with that, and somehow thought he had stats that would be a hard counter to my point, which he didn't. Spoiler, but let me see if I can find this fool. because I didn't respond back. I didn't want to really take the time. He's an idiot, but I thought some of his points were. And there's a reason, by the way. There's a reason for this. If I can find it, let me see here. Because it was. Oh wait, hold on. That's all right. Oh no! I went on. Okay, here we go. Most people are pretty much in agreement that Sam Cedar and Kyle Kuklinski are cancers on the United States, but let's see. And some people, I wouldn't call them cowards. I would because Kyle refuses to ever engage in a discussion with anyone who opposes his worldview. And Sam Cedar will be ushered in the back door of a debate he's not even supposed to be having because the guy that's supposed to be debating is too much of a coward himself to actually debate. So, yeah, I'd call that kind of cowardly. Yeah. But I mean, mostly just support. But I'm trying to find this one thing because I don't mind. Tell me, you disagree. That's fine. I don't mind. I'm a big boy. I can handle it. But when you try to interject, some stupid insult in there, then I'm like, okay, well, let's break this down. Maybe I have to find it this way. Hold on. Oh, no. He didn't delete it, did he? Maybe he did. Hmm. Damn. Maybe he did. There's something like 43 replies. Oh wait, there's a little bit more here. Yeah, here we go. Here it is. Which, by the way, my 820 likes to his 3, I'll take that as a kind of win because I never get to do that, so I'll go ahead and do that now. But anyway, he says, my discussion isn't an argument; it's a psychological confession because I called Kyle and Sam hypocritical cowards, which they are. But it's a fox tier fantasy about an open border. By the way, that's a fox tier fantasy, which literally no, it's not. I mean, we have footage of the fucking thing. So sorry, that's stupid. But the part that really kind of grinded my gears though was this part right here. The idea that the left controlled all branches of government 4 years ago is historically illiterate. No, it's not. Wait a minute. They control all the branches of government that you can vote into, and the Supreme Court, contrary to popular belief, is interpreting the Constitution. It's not partisan one way or another. I know that Democrats hate it when they vote against Democrats, but and against everything that they want, but that doesn't make partisan. But the idea that an open border has caused more abuse than Jeffrey Epstein, a trafficker with ties to presidents, billionaires, intelligence figures, and financial elites, is deranged even by right-wing Reddit brain standards. Okay, cocksucker. Yeah. Here's the thing. This is where I like, some things are fine, but and I wouldn't even give this air, but this is relevant to what's going on right now because with the release of the Epstein information that just wasn't enough once again. And it's, we don't even know the context why Bill Clinton was in a pool or a hot tub with a bunch of underage girls. We have no idea the context. So, maybe it's fine. To this guy, I'd ask, you ever heard of the rape trees? You ever hear of those? You ever see those? Because I would argue first and foremost that despite your distaste and anger, obviously, for people who are wealthy or political figures or things like that, which, if you got something that you dislike about a politician or you think someone illegitimately earned their money, then okay, I can understand that hostility. But going back to my argument, Democrats don't give a shit about poor people. They just are upset that they're not among the upper echelon of rich people because they think that they are absolutely deserving of the most accolades and the most praise for their benevolent causes. But the thing is that they allowed this to happen, and yes, the rape trees. That is where to taunt Border Patrol and ICE. These sick monsters would take the underwear from all the women and girls that they raped and sex trafficked. And right along the border where they would traffic these people, they threw them up into these trees that were all along the what's the river? I don't know, the Rio Grande. Now, it was obviously meant to taunt Border Patrol and obviously meant to taunt law enforcement that, yeah, look, we can do this and you can't do a thing. And you have to look at this sick monument to our absolutely demonic celebration of rape and sex trafficking of innocent young girls and women who, due to unfortunate financial or circumstances that are going on in their country or their home or wherever they're from, they came here for the hope of escaping into a better place, which I don't blame them for that. I just want them to do it the right way. But it's obviously not the right way when, I think it was something like 80 to 90% of the women that were making the trip were either using a patch or taking a supply of birth control medication because they knew there was a better than good chance that they were going to be sexually assaulted somewhere along the way. It was just part of the trip. Now, you know how many people came into the country and how many women came into the country? How many children came into the country under the Biden administration? And how many of them were raped or sexually assaulted? I mean, we're talking about a massive number here. If you think I'm wrong about that, and you think somehow Jeffrey Epstein was able to traffic more men and women than the fucking cartel, sorry, you're the delusional one, asshole. And no, that's I know you can't stand it because despite the fact that it was under the Trump administration that this guy actually finally ended up getting arrested and having crime charges stick, unlike during the Obama administration where they let him out on a work release program for him to essentially keep doing the same thing he was doing. But the facts are the facts. And the fact of the matter is, despite how despicable Jeffrey Epstein was, I'm sorry, the cartel and their rape trees and their human trafficking enterprises that allowed men, or the cartel, to traffic women and children into their sex trafficking rings and also throw their underwear into trees along the border to taunt Border Patrol. I mean, we're talking about evil here on both scales, but that is a little bit higher of a number. That's all we're talking about here. A number. They're both evil. They're both sick and disgusting. The problem is you don't give a shit about the number. You don't give a shit about the victims. You care about one thing only. Who's responsible? And if it's not Donald Trump, you couldn't care less. And that's what really has me fucking pissed off. And I'm sorry, here we go. Here's this part I knew was coming. I am pissed off as hell that when it involves Donald Trump doing something wrong, oh, we got to throw the book at him. But when it involves an illegal immigrant, when it involves anybody who's on the Democrat side that's been elected to office, oh, God, how dare you? How dare you suggest these sorts of things? Who's on the side of victims again? I'm sorry, I forgot. And that's why this thing had to be discussed, because this Epstein file thing, like, it drives me nuts. No information will ever be enough. But let's get one thing clear here. Let's make sure we understand one important fact about this. The Epstein files aren't a list of this client did this thing on this date, and this client did this thing on this. No, it's a book of contacts that we have no idea of their relationship or what they did, or if they met him for one occasion to do some kind of financial transaction, or if there was somebody who was a sicko and wanted to meet an underage girl. We have no clue. We have no clue. What are the names going to give you? Well, I'll tell you what they're going to do. They're going to start a witch hunt for every single person whose name is on that list. And Donald Trump has said this before himself. What good is there releasing the names to a ravenous group of people who aren't thinking straight because they're so angry at something that rightly should be angry? It should induce anger. But just handing the list over to the people and expecting nothing to go wrong is delusional. I want to see anybody who hurt a child at all be put away, castrated, and thrown off a cliff. But a book of names that has had 10 to 15 years to be sitting out there, and anybody associated with the case that is biased or paid off or whatever to alter or destroy parts of, or whatever the case may be, it's not going to tell you shit. So there'll never be anything that the Democrats are going to get that's going to satisfy them unless they have a photo of Donald Trump basically doing the same thing as Prince Andrew. And I don't think that exists. So this whole focus on this as this pivotal information that we just can get if we just press hard enough. Sorry. I don't think that we're ever going to get to the full extent of this. And once again, nobody seems to mention one key aspect of this. Virginia Roberts, who was one of the leading, probably the leading whistleblower who was a survivor, just happened to be, found somehow committing suicide. Once again, suicide just before this thing blew up in the United States once again. And which, by the way, she herself has vouched for Donald Trump on several occasions that he had nothing to do with anything illegal towards the girls. And the only other person we know of is Ghislaine Maxwell, and they all get all pissed off anytime they talk to Ghislaine Maxwell. Sorry, the one living witness to the crimes that's credible and that we know of and has been there from start to finish, that would know all the information. Well, you forbade us from talking to her because she's so reprehensible, we don't want you talking to her. Well, we're kind of at a dead end then here, because Epstein's dead, Virginia Roberts is dead, and Ghislaine Maxwell is apparently off limits according to the Democrats. So, okay, then we're going to release what we can release, and that's all we can do. But don't get mad when things are redacted because we're trying to protect the names of underage people who maybe we haven't even had contact with yet. Who knows? This whole thing is such a massive fiasco, and I swear, the fact that this is why I say it's the Russia collusion scandal of the second term. That's exactly what it is, because no information will ever be enough. No, it's the reason why someone like Bob Mueller can get up and say, well, we didn't find any evidence, but we also didn't conclude that he wasn't That's not how criminal case works. You don't have to prove innocence. That's not the way it works. That's why you're innocent until proven guilty. And when you don't prove guilt, then sorry, the crime is not officially a crime at that point, and someone is considered a free citizen and not a criminal. And as much as you want it to be so, as much as you might sit up late at night and wish so badly that the Steele dossier was 100% correct and Russian hookers were peeing on Donald Trump, I'm sorry, that's delusional and insane, and the fact that has been given so much credibility by the ridiculous news media is once again just a sign of how absolutely disconnected from any kind of actual duty to United States citizens to tell the truth that the current state of the media is in. Like, it's just an absolute shit show. And now, unfortunately, the rest of this is going to have to wait for tomorrow because I have a lot more to say on this. But because I didn't get to see the information about the released Epstein files until late today, so I didn't get to clip any videos or have any information fully prepared. But I did want to touch on that because I thought it was important, and I swear, once again, I have no problem with anybody that has an argument with me or wants to look. I'm no debate expert. I'm no professional at making sure I can make my case in the most effective way possible. But I don't mind having a discussion with anybody about the things that I've heard and hearing new information about it. But that's what's so interesting about Democrats that are, I would say, borderline like religious about the Democrat Party, because once again, for their how much they despise Christianity because of the supposed flying spaghetti monster idea that there's this thing that exists that we can't see, but we have to have faith in believing. That's rich coming from a party who has been proven time and time again to be chasing a rabbit hole that is absolute bullshit, and yet they can be presented with counter evidence and they'll still believe it. So, sorry if the idea of believing in God and believing in Christianity and having faith is in some way upsetting to you. I'd say maybe you might want to pick up that book and read about faith as opposed to reading about delusion and hatred that gets into your brain so badly that you actually want to just cling to any theory whatsoever that will bring that person down. That obsession is why Donald Trump is back in office again. And unfortunately, I hope that, I really, really sincerely hope that the current Republican voting blocs and Republican voters in states can get out and treat this seriously this time, because, like I said, if the Democrats get back into office, there's going to be one thing and one thing only they're going to be talking about in hearing after hearing after hearing, nonstop, and that's going to be impeachment, and not just of Trump, of Hegseth, of Noem, of Kennedy, of Gabbard. They hate them all. They hate every single one of them. They're floating articles of impeachment around for all these people. It's incredible. They're not content this time around with just impeaching Trump. They want to impeach everybody in that cabinet, and that is a pretty damn good sign that he picked the right team this time. Because if they're getting under their skin that badly, then they got to be doing something right. Anyway, so I'll be talking more about the Epstein case tomorrow, or on the next episode, hopefully tomorrow. And there was one more thing that I was going to go into more detail about. I didn't have time today. Turning Point and the convention and the whole fallout. A lot of what I was talking about just now has to do with the fallout with people like Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, Ben Shapiro, all these people, because I think this is really I look. I don't care what your interests are, and I don't care who you personally like to watch. If you like any of these people, that's great. That's fine. Nothing wrong with that. But once you get to the level of hubris that it requires for these people to kind of place themselves at the center of the universe and their ideas as infallible, and you treat this like it's more important than the midterms and more important than the country, then I don't know. It just it's really revealing. And once again, I guess I'll explain this now. And this is a great way to close. You guys may be wondering this, but there's a reason why I scoff at the term influencer so much, and I use influencer instead. I've always thought that was a very conceited way to refer to to yourself, especially. But when that got adopted as the official way to refer to people who fucking make live streams and YouTube videos, I was like, wow, that's freaking egotistical. Like, that's really, really incredibly egotistical. I don't see how about you let the people decide who is influential to them and not declare yourself an influencer as some sort of term that denotes you are. I mean, that just comes with this connotation with it that your ideas inherently have value. And I'm sorry, I'm not going to accept that about somebody who I reject their opinion entirely. And I know for a fact, based on evidence, is absolutely, completely false and wrong about several things they cling to as reality over and over again. So that's why I have a really serious objection with the term influencer, because to use it as a blanket way to describe people who make videos and live streams and just do that as their profession or as their hobby or whatever. Uh, who knows? They might not be influencing shit. So that's why I call myself a content creator and a live streamer. If you have a show or a podcast, you have a show, you do a podcast. I mean, you don't need a special term like influencer to describe what you do. There's already names for it. And so that's why I always joke around about that. And we're seeing that play out in live action right now with certain members of the Republican Party who are so angry at people in the party that disagree with their particular beliefs, or people who are so ambiguous about their point, but act like their point is so obvious that we all should have got it by now. And that's why when it comes to Tucker buying property in Qatar and acting like, I mean, to state that I'm buying property in Qatar because I'm an American and I should be able to go wherever I want and not be questioned about it. Well, that's true. Buying property and wanting to stay and live in a country that is not America. I mean, there's people who hate the idea of dual citizenship, and that's not what he's talking about. But still, it's like, how does that prove how much you love America to say you're going to buy a house in another country? I just don't understand the mentality there. Now, I don't have a real personal problem with either one of these people. I'm just confused as hell as to when exactly these things got so deeply. I mean, I guess I do. It was when Charlie got shot and a bunch of, people who loved mooching off a tragedy decided to cling on to it and try and milk it for all it was worth. And that was disgusting. But to keep it up, especially if it's just because it's getting you numbers, is sick. And so that's part of what we'll be discussing in the next episode. But it's also just the last little thing, because I'm not going to say any day I'm going to be for sure off until Christmas Eve. The 24th and the 25th, I'll definitely not be live, but I'm going to try to make it on tomorrow and as many days as I can before for the holidays. So hopefully I'll see you guys tomorrow, but if not, it'll definitely be before Christmas Eve. So until I see you guys next time, and to my friend Bretta Clinton, Africa over there, sorry I missed your oh so important accusations there, but maybe I'll catch them next time. They're pretty shitty, but yeah, nice try. Anyway, to the rest of you, thank you guys as ever. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Until then, take care of yourselves. Have a fantastic evening, afternoon, morning, whatever it is. I'll talk to you then. Peace.
In 5, 4, 3. That's tomorrow, and that is it for us today. And we will leave you with a. I can't do it. Okay. We'll do it live. Okay. We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it, and we'll do it live.